Welcome back to the realm of the Mindful Madman. Before we get into today's video, I just wanted to take a brief moment and talk about our sponsor. So today's video is sponsored. I'm playing. I don't got no sponsors yet, but I'm like manifesting it, so I'm just kind of practicing what I would say. I think that, I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure they like give the YouTubers like a script or some type of like loose script, and then they can choose how they want to relay the information or sell the product. I don't know, but I mean, only a man can dream, right? I just wanted to practice that, see how that sounded. Today's sponsor, or thank you for sponsoring, but all right, let's get into it. So I just finished reading what I believe up until this point, because I only recently started to get into reading. I'm not a very well-read person yet, but up until this point in my life, this has got to be this is definitely the most disturbing book that I have ever read in my life. But I don't mean that entirely in a bad way. Like, it was disturbing, but it was written well, and the gore and the heaviness of certain topics and themes, it was necessary to be included. It was just kind of nasty, right? And I'm not saying that to discourage people from reading the book. I'm just honestly giving you a friendly heads up warning. I mean, if you go on Goodreads, by the way, my Goodreads is in the description of all my videos, so if you want to see the books I'm reading, my TBRs and all that, my reading challenges, it's in my Goodreads if you want to follow me or just be nosy and look at my stuff. But for real. Yeah, the book, I have to give a friendly warning. The book is definitely, it's gory. Like, it's not on every page it's gory, but like pretty much from the very first page you get a feel of what's about to happen or what's about to be said. And I don't really do like book reviews and whatnot. I like to talk about specific points and then kind of elaborate on that. But just to give you like a very rough overview, this is a dystopian novel about, pretty much, air quotes, honestly, the world could become like this. I personally feel like it already kind of is. You just don't hear about it. But this is a dystopian novel in its own right, where pretty much this virus outbreak went out, where all the animals became contaminated, so people started eating other people, and humans started to become like animals in terms of like how people saw humans. Some of them were lab-made humans, other ones were like natural humans, all lab-made, but like some were like fully synthetic or almost synthetic, and other humans were like regular humans. You read the book, you understand what I'm talking about. But pretty much all food outside of like vegetables, so pretty much all meat, only people were being eaten, not animals, because all animals were seen as infected. And I mean, just from the start of that alone is enough to be like, what the hell, But I think the author just did a great job in how because the book was written in third person, and the author did a good job in how she used the mindset and the thoughts and the way of, I guess, living of the protagonist to kind of show the different dichotomies of how a person can be when you're in like this type of world now, where it's normal to eat a person, it's normal to kill a person, because it's all in the name of business, right? And that's not too far from the world now. I don't want to get too morbid or anything, but human trafficking is like the number one business in the world. And the bodies of all ages, young, old, middle age, that's worth more of a greater commodity in the realms of darkness of these high ups, even more so than actual gold and diamond, which is crazy, right? Like your blood, your flesh is worth more than what we would consider something that is worth a lot of money, which at the end of the day, rightfully so. You're I think a human should be the most worthy thing on this planet because we were made in the image of the Most High. But there's a dark side to that when your body is being used as a form of trade. And obviously you know that from slavery, but this book takes it further than that. It's just straight up inhumane. And the author, her name is, I'm gonna try my best with this one, Augustina Basterica or Basterica. I heard people say Basterica, but like they sounded like they just sounded like they were speaking in whatever regular American accent they were trying to say, but I don't think it's pronounced that way. It's probably Basterica or something like that, because she's an Argentinian author. So I know there's some flair to her name. I just probably not pronouncing it right. But yeah, this book really took me on a spin. It really did take me on a spin. Some of the major themes that I can think of off the top of my head, I can't think of like a one-word answer, but I would say your sense of humanity, your sense of morality. It's kind of the main character that was challenged throughout the novel, because although the protagonist had moments where they knew what they were doing was wrong. Like there are some characters, if you decide to read the book, there's some characters who they become so deep in this act that they're doing, whether they're selling the humans that they breed, because there's like breeding centers and everything, but I don't want to spoil it. But like some of the characters that are a part of this, whether they're selling, whether they're buying, whether they're eating, whether they're auctioning, some of them are so ingrained in the practice that they do that this is their job, this is their life. So they don't, at least the way the author portrayed them, they never like fully showed a sense of humanity for these people. They saw these people as straight animals because, again, they were only used to be sold, eaten, whatever else. But the interesting part about the main character, and his name is Marcos. I think his name is Marcos. I don't remember. His either Marcos or something else. I don't know why I said it with an accent. I don't know. Like when I see Hispanic names, I don't want to say it like regular Marcos. No, it's Marcos. But yeah, the main character is interesting with him because he keeps going back and forth between, yo, I know this is wrong, but I'm doing this to support myself and my family. But at the same time, like, there's something deep within me that doesn't sit right with this, but I'm still a part of it. You know, like someone who's dabbling back and forth, kind of swaying. And we know that if you're someone who dabbles and dips in evil, things that are clearly wrong, but you also still have that sense of consciousness to know that this is wrong, and you haven't like fully become just soulless, you're still a part of the problem. And I think that was one of the themes that the author was trying to portray, just people in the world who see things, or maybe they're in close circles with people who do awful things, but because that person may be a family member, a business partner, I don't know, just someone close to them, they overlook it, maybe due to that person's status, their power, or just the fact that they've known them for so long. And I think that when you put yourself in those type of predicaments, it really does kind of eat at your soul in a way, and you have to make a decision on what side you stand on. And it talks about it. It's crazy because I think I don't know if I ever put the video out, but I'm pretty sure I did. Like every time I read something, I'm always able to relate it back to the word God. I can't remember verses or whatever, but I know there's a verse that says choose today where you shall stand, or something like that. I think it's in Exodus, when Moses comes back, and he was basically like, all right, for the people that want to worship God, go over there. People that don't want to worship God and you want to worship the pagan idols, go over there. And like they did that, and then like the earth split up and those people just got swallowed by the earth or something like that. But that theme was in this book because this character, he just kept going back and forth, but like he was embedded in it and it was all around him. So he's still a part of the issue. And that's the case with many people. And it doesn't have to be celebrities. It doesn't have to be famous politicians and billionaires. It could be regular everyday people who don't really have anything to their name. Being associated with someone who you know is partaking in things that are inhumane or things that you know don't sit right in your spirit, but like it's your cousin or it's your brother or it's your best friend from growing up, and you kind of try to overlook those things because of your care for the person, right? But it gets to a point where you can no longer do that, and she executes that theme very well throughout the book. And there's a bunch of other themes, but that was like the main one that I wanted to touch base on. And I also wanted to read a quote from the book, and just to give light context without spoiling, the main character, he worked at a facility where it was like the processing and all that of the humans, and pretty much before the humans were made into food and delicacies, they would go through this facility, and he was he wasn't the highest person, but he was like the second in command or whatever, right? And this particular scene, he has to go to this woman who's a doctor, and she has her own laboratory, and she's a part of it too, with the inhumanity of selling and murdering and doing all these experiments on humans. And I liked how he described her. He described her as someone who was like so tainted in her worldview, so vicious and kind of vile in her way of thinking, because she became so deep into this realm, and she saw herself as like someone who was making extreme discoveries, and like this was like her life's work, pretty much slaughtering humans, right? But in the name of a better cause. She was so deep in that trap. She was so deep in that type of programming that she couldn't see it in any way that this was wrong. But the thing that I liked about this particular scene I'm about to read is that at the end of the day, humans still have, I believe, people still have that tiny part in them. Even if they're rotten to the core, it seems like there's always that tiny part in them that knows the basics of right from wrong, right? And I think part of the way of like selling your soul or losing your soul is knowing that you're doing something that is wrong, and you might feel that etch in you to change your ways, but you decide that you're not going to. It's one thing to be brainwashed and you don't know that what you're doing is wrong, but you're just in it because maybe that's how you grew up, or you were just programmed that way from like propaganda and social media and all those things, right? But then there's another thing to know what you're doing is wrong, but you still choose to do it because of how far in you are, or how you find benefits to it. So you overlook the worst parts and pull out the parts that affect you in a positive way, which isn't truly positive, right? Like I feel like those are the moments truly when someone loses their soul. When you go against yourself and continue to do something so egregious for whatever reason that you make up for yourself. And that was the case with this woman that he was talking to, and honestly him in a way. But the quote that was here: she opens her mouth without showing her teeth and lets out a guttural sound that could be a cackle but isn't. I'm surrounded by death all day long, at all hours of the day, she says, and points to the carcasses in the fridge. Everything indicates that my destiny is in there. Or do you think we won't have to pay for this? So, what fascinated me about that quote is that if you decide to read, I'm saying if you decide to read it, because I know some of you are going to listen to this and be like, hell no, I'm not reading this. But for those of you that do, if you decide to read this book, this particular doctor that you will get an introduction to, you'll know what type of person she is. So this little message is definitely something that is out of the norm, something that's a little shocking that you wouldn't expect from someone like her. But again, it goes back to my point of, I still think that even in the darkest hour, humans still have that sense of that tiny little light in them that they could change. They just choose not to, right? And in this moment, you can see that in her, because she's like, I'm aware that everything that we're doing is messed up, is evil, is not right. But she's basically saying that, like, I'm so far in this that my fate is sealed, my destiny is sealed, it's done, it's a done deal. And that is something that I've also been pondering on, whether or not the way your destiny is set up, or your fate is not how it's like set in stone, but you decide if it's going to be. So if you decide that you're not going to change, then it's set in stone that way. If you decide to change, then it's not set in stone, right? And she was having this conversation with the protagonist, and I was like, you know what? She's absolutely right. You reap what you sow. So if you decide to go down a certain path, you decide to do something, you are going to reap. The harvest will come of the things that you plant, whether that is positive or negative. And it's definitely something to think about, just as you are out in your daily life and kind of seeing the fabric of society kind of slip away, like the morality in the world. And I say that because, by the way, I'm back on Instagram, not a lot, but I'm on it. So if you want to DM me, Mindful Madman, just send me a DM, I'll see it. But the reason why I said that last part is because a couple days ago, on February the 26th, I'm gonna remember this because I journaled about it. On February 26th, Instagram was wilding out. There was just like death everywhere. Like every time I went to a new reel, like every other reel on that day, it was just like sensitive. This is a sensitive context. Scroll to or click to view more or whatever, and you would click it, and it would be like someone either dying or like a school fight or like a street fight, and it was like weird because it came out of nowhere. When I look at the comments, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, I see the same thing. It's just straight up death." And I think that happened for a deeper reason. I think it's more of like programming and kind of like hijacking your mind to be desensitized to violence, because those things will come in real life, right? Like, it may be at your doorstep. You just gotta be prepared for it, because we in them times, right? But even saying all that, I still believe that like there's a sense of morality and traditional values that still upholds, but sometimes it feels like it's quickly dwindling away, because all you see when you go on social media is just like debauchery, people cheating on each other, people lying, stealing, not loving one another, being very disgusting towards each other, defaming people, libel, slander, all that. And but despite all that, I still think that, again, it's that tiny little spark inside every single person. Like, it's you have to make a decision to be a good person, and there's always the choice to do so, right? And I think that Augustina kind of challenges that in this book, just in a very demented way. But I've always been someone that found interest in darker books and art and movies because they're real. And I admire and respect the fact that she didn't shy away from things that other books would kind of dance around, right? Every book has their own reason and theme, but there have been other books that I've read that would like talk about deep things, but it was like pretty vague, as if like the author didn't really want to go there, but like hinted at it. But she went straight for the head, if you know the Avengers reference. but but yeah, I really want to go in deep with this book, but I don't want to spoil it. I really don't. I just think that whoever it's meant for, read it. Read the book, and if you want to talk about it afterwards, send me a DM. I think one day I'm gonna create a Discord for like books that have already been read, that I already read, and maybe some of you already read, so we can just go in and talk about it. I really don't want to spoil it, so I'm gonna keep it pretty high level. But Tender is the Flesh. It was a good novel, and you might be wondering, how did you hear about this book? I'm gonna keep it about. I literally went on Google one day. I was in Barnes and Nobles. I remember this. About a month ago, I was in Barnes and Nobles, just walking around, and I literally went on my phone. I said, I put in top 10 most disturbing books, and this was like number 1 or number 2, and I was like, I bet Tender is the Flesh. They didn't have it at Barnes and Noble, so I had to order it off of Amazon, and I wasn't disappointed. It's definitely very disturbing, but again, the themes in this book, I only spoke on one really, but there's like several. They're very deep, and it does point back and mirrors the way society is heading. Yeah. If you know of a movie called Soylent Green, I haven't seen that movie, but I know it's about like people consuming humans and not knowing it. This movie actually, I think this movie mentions that. Or it like touched base on it a little bit. But she definitely got some of her ideologies from Soylent Green. And another thing, this book apparently was published in 2017, and there was a certain scene in the book where a character was talking, and what he described was literally the whole premise of Squid Games. So I was scratching my head. I was like, bro, Squid Games came out when? Like 2020, 2021? I'm like, shoot, did the writers of Squid Games get some game from her? The writers of Squid Games get some game from Agostina? Because she wrote this book before Squid Games came out. Unless the playwright or the screenplay of Squid Games was written before this book. But it was like, dang, it was like almost exactly the same in terms of like, you know, how people will go into, I ain't gonna spoil it. I'm gonna keep talking, I'm gonna spoil it. But yeah, this is Tender is the Flesh by Agostina Basterica. I don't know. But definitely worth the read, and I'm gonna keep doing these book talks. I'm just a very slow reader, so don't expect these videos like every other day or even every week, because this book is like 200 some pages, and it took me like almost 2 weeks to read this. I could have read it faster, but I savor my books. I don't read them too quickly, partially because I'm just not there yet, but also because like I'll read it a little bit and then I'll think about it and then go do some creative stuff and then come back to it. But at this point I'm just rambling. So it's the Mindful Madman. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.